She put a pot on she hair and gone. Them a the first one out on the dam. Basket on she head, bucket in each hand. Hold up on she frack, I wanna she grandson. To the market, them a go. For the morning, the day is dawning. Forgot a crow to give the villagers a warning. Rise and shine, the birds them a sing. All animal take turn as them join in the waking. Cock crow, dagaba, donkey bray, horse and they even duck a quack. Cock crow, dagaba, donkey bray, horse and they even duck a quack. Come and hear this sweet story that tell the people about life in the country. Come and hear the sweet story, but tell the people about life in the country. Life in the country. Look at that, Mr. Granger. Look at the coconut trees. Look at the kids playing. Look at that. That's. Look at the fence, and I can tell that they're playing football. They're playing soccer right there, or even cricket. Great cricketers came from there. Those sort of fields.
Button ball.
Button ball. Enter. I bet you probably don't know what is enter hole.
Is that no? I never play that.
Enter hole, marble.
Oh, marbles. Yes.
We top. All manner of things we did right there. Look at this.
Young
right
people
there.
must enjoy life. You know, it wouldn't. Those days wouldn't come again, and that's why we're so concerned about young people.
That's what it
Not
is.
young ones, but these are the future leaders of our country.
Yeah, look at it. I can't. Look at it. And then when we're thirsty, guess what? Somebody gone up the coconut tree. Somebody gone and pick mangoes. Young people. That is.
Whole day in Baghdad, especially in August.
Yep.
And I never forgot why guineas and mangoes only bear in August.
Good. And belly full. We didn't have to worry about breakfast early morning. We went out for fruits, play with little cricket, soccer. And then when we're done, gone in the trench.
And those trees were planted by our ancestors. Very thoughtful.
You know, looking back at those days.
Not be hungry.
Oh, man. Looking back at those days now brings me to today's topic. We want to deal with young people. Guyana's future belongs to young people who are educated, employed, and empowered to make the most prudent decisions in their lives. Young people of every race, region, and religion, however, often face challenges in their lives and well-being. Tonight's program on Anansi Web Education, we discussed this statement: young people should be in school, in sport, or at work, not in prison. So true. Young people should be in sport, in school, at work, not in prison. That's our topic for tonight. Before we begin, Mr. Granger, how are you doing, sir? And good night.
Well, it's good to be on this program again and discuss this important topic. Although both you and I have ceased to be young people some time ago, we're no longer young, but at least we could.
And you're taking the opportunity to speak on both of our behalves, or?
I can speak for myself. I'm not young, but I hope that we can create a country in which young people could aspire to be safe, be fully employed, and not that I have anything against people who migrate, but I would like a lot more young people to feel comfortable in this country of their birth. And I believe this program, Anansi Web Education, will help them to appreciate what Guyana can do for them.
I'm looking at
daughters.
Absolutely. I'm looking at this photograph here, your alma mater, St. John the Baptist Primary School. There you are. What was it like when you visited this school here?
Well, the enthusiasm, the nostalgia, the recollections, I cannot go to Bartica and not feel, that sense of personal history and satisfaction with the community. It was so peaceful, 75 years ago. I can't get it out of. As I tell people, whenever I'm stressed out, I think of Bartica. when I'm stressed out, I just think of that river, which was like a lake, the peaceful surroundings, flying my first kite. It is, and of course, the church and the school, St. John the Baptist Church and St. John the Baptist Primary School. Of course, it was called Anglican School in those days, but those memories have remained with me for my entire life. When I got married, I took my new wife to party, because that's the start of my life.
Young people should be young people. They should be in school. They should be in sport. They should be working. They should not be in prison. I couldn't agree with you more on that. They should not be in prison. And a lot of our young people, instead of given a second chance, instead of some rehabilitation program, instead of giving them an opportunity to go and learn a trade or whatever, nobody seemed to care about them. I've seen a lot of them in prison, lots and lots of those young people. And it's a shame and disgrace that you should have governments that should take care of our young people. We have not seen that, especially prior to 2015. It was not the case at all. But I must interject here. Uh, my opinion, my opinion, that from 2015 we saw young people, they start to hold on to some sort of hope. They saw a government that was caring, a government that didn't support death squads or any sort of squads that eliminated young people, uh, pull them out of their homes and execute them, and extrajudicial killings of our young people. We didn't see that under your presidency. And so I know I can attest to that, that young people, parents start to develop hope and an atmosphere where they began to breathe again. Thank you so much for what you did when you were president of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. I just wish that.
It was cut short after 3 years by that no confidence motion.
Yeah.
So we just had 2015 to 2018, quite frankly. After that, we were short of everything, funds, and we didn't have the sort of budgets that the government has now. But I think the deliberate destruction of the APNU is something we must examine on another occasion.
And
that initiative brought to a halt.
Examine we will. Examine we will.
Yeah,
good night to all of you who are now joining us, whether you're in Guyana, wherever you are, Linden, Quarantine, Bartica, Auckland Village, Philippi, Alnes, wherever you are, Kokwani, Aituni. I've noticed someone who occupies a particular office. Maybe someone needs to teach that person the correct pronunciation of Kokwani as opposed to Kwak, Kwani, Kwak, Kwani. You understand you can only quack if you're a quack, but no need to call the individual's name. We wouldn't do that. Let's go to the first question as we say goodnight to all of you again. We're dealing with young people, and the future belongs to young people who are educated, they're employed and empowered to make the most prudent decisions in their lives. Young people of every race, again, young people of every race, it doesn't matter. Region, it doesn't matter whether it's region 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 4, wherever it is, 3, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter their religion, whether they're Hindus, Muslims, Christians, whatever they are, it doesn't matter. And we gotta ensure that young people are okay. Again, as we discussed this statement, young people should be in school, in sport, or at work, not in prison. First question for tonight, Mr. Granger. What are the gravest challenges faced by young people today?
I think, Mark, simply the answer is contained in your original statement. One is a satisfactory education. That is, every child should be in school and they must have access to universal primary education, universal secondary education. And as we promised when we were in government, tertiary education. So all 3 levels, primary, secondary, and tertiary. We need to have more people remaining in school. But the first one is a challenge, and that is why our administration embarked on the 3Bs, because in my campaigning, in my travels around the country, I realized a lot of children were not going to school because they couldn't afford transportation to get to school, especially in the riverine areas like the Pomeroon and the Berbice River. Well, every river, every river, Demerara River, Berbice, Pomeroon. We spent a lot of effort because we didn't have money to get children to go to school. And my wife was with me when we went to Pomeroon, and I always remember that incident. She was giving out some books, and a girl, a child, really said, when she got the book, she was about 12 years old. Said, "Miss, I cannot read." And Sandra said, "Well, why can't you?" He said, "I don't go to school." "Why don't you go to school?" "My mother can't afford to send me because in the Pomeroons, there are no roads, it's just a river. And if you can't afford the fee of a water taxi or a canoe or boat, you don't go to school." So a lot of children were simply being left uneducated because they couldn't afford to go to school. And that was the start, my wife and I, of the public education transport service, which is called the 3Bs. So those in the rivers got boats, those on land got bicycles or buses. And that was the start of the 3Bs. And of course, it later went on to the breakfast and so on, books, free books. So it wasn't a slogan, this was reality. And children were able to simply turn up with their uniforms and step on a bus, no loud music, no vulgarity, and go to school. That is why the PPP was so angry that on the 6th of March, I never forget that day, 6th of March 2020, they stoned that school bus in West Coast Beach because it was a symbol of education for young people. It was a symbol of liberating young people and families from, being left out of the education system. So I would say that our policy of getting every child in school by every means possible, both bicycle or buses, to get every child in school was one of the most important elements in dealing with the problems facing young people. The other problem, of course, is that once you get educated, you could become better employed. And employment is a big problem. And people don't want to be given brooms and buckets to clean up the highways, which is what is happening now, so-called community, and clean up the drains. There are people who train to do that, and people could be employed to do that. But young people have ambitions, and they want to be the best they could be for their mothers and for their families and for their communities. And what is happening? People are being pushed down into this underclass of laborers. We need labor at all levels, but certainly persons should be given the opportunity to get the best education, because we need our own engineers, we need our own miners, we need our own technicians, our own pilots and accountants and attorneys, and they must come out of the school system. And that is why we pay so much attention to education. And education has a link to employment, and we need to get people remaining in Guyana who can build the country. And the third level is empowerment, that we must rely on young people to express themselves and explain to the adults what they need. We must stop pushing programs down on young people. But if young people are educated and employed, they'll make decisions in their own interests. So I would say, in answer to your question, the gravest challenge is the challenge of education and the challenge of employment. And linked to that is the challenge of empowerment. And we must use the local government system to bring more young people into the NDCs and into the RDCs and eventually into the National Assembly. But the NDCs and RDCs are training schools, for young people before they get to the National Assembly. But we need to treat young people not as part of some type of propaganda effort, giving everybody some red polo shirt and parading them. But we need to sit down and discuss with them what they really need in their communities. And that is what I would regard as empowerment. So education, employment, empowerment go together. And also, we must bear in mind that Essequibo River is more than a geographical feature. It has unfortunately divided Western Guyana from Eastern Guyana. And when we speak of equality, we must look at the quality of life west of Port Island, the quality of life west of the Essequibo. The distances are greater, the villages are more scattered, the quality of government service is lower. That is why I introduced 4 towns, in Western Essequibo, Bartica, Madia, Lethem, and Mabaruma, because those towns will become hubs for development so that inequalities would be reduced and we get quality education, quality government, quality healthcare in the hinterland. So it is all wrapped up in education, in empowerment, and in employment. And I think that is it seems like a long answer, but that is the shortest answer I can give you to the challenges facing young people: education and employment.
Thank you so much. If you're now joining us, welcome to Anansi Web Education. Good night to all of you. And those who have shared the link, thank you so much as well. Our second question: where has youth unemployment had its greatest impact?
Well, Mark, the unemployment is pervasive, but I would say the villages on the coastline and in the hinterland have suffered most. And it is really a shame that many of our young people in the rural villages, they because of educational problems, they cannot find proper employment, and many of them cannot even migrate to other areas because they don't have the skills. And in the hinterland, many of our young people had been going across the borders to Brazil to look for work. Again, because of the difficulty in finding employment in their own country. So the impact is great both on the coastline and the hinterland. And if you go to any village in the coastline, you will see that a lot of young people, many people, I think, just to survive, would probably, have a stall or try to sell some, commodities. They're not lazy people. It's just that the opportunities for employment are inadequate. And when you consider the fact that in 1968, the PNC administration introduced the Guyana Youth Corps, and this was later converted into the Guyana National Service in 1974. That national service was destroyed by the PPP in 2000. So the question of unemployment became more serious under the PPP. And when I got into office, I realized that the youth unemployment problem had not been properly tackled or had not been reduced under the PPP between 1992 and 2015. I reintroduced something called the Guyana Youth Corps. And as soon as the PPP got in 2020, they abolished the Youth Corps. So we've had a problem there, and I believe that the unemployment problem is severe and is driving young people into a life of crime, unfortunately, simply because they're jobless. So that is my answer to your question. And the Guyana Youth Corps, which was those young women there, you can see on the screen, were part of the working youth corps under the APNU AFC until the PPP just destroyed it. So I reestablished it I said you don't need people in the opportunity core. It's a prison. It's a prison. The NOC on the naming is a prison. And we liberated them by giving them a youth corps at Kurukuru. And that was meant to be the center for youth, especially youth who had dropped out of school, and maybe young mothers and people who did not complete the secondary education, to get back into the employment system. And we announced then and there that we don't want NEETs, people not in education, not in employment, and not in training. And the Guyana Youth Corps, established by the AP and UAFC under when I was president, was meant to eliminate the whole question of NEETs. Every child should be in employment, in education, or in training, not in prison. And as I said before, when I left office, there was not a single young girl, not a single woman, not a single young child, female, in the New Opportunity Corps. I sent them all home. No imprisonment for young people. And unfortunately, in the national level, nearly 1,700 young people, 1,700 young people, out of 2,200 prisoners, 1,700 are young people. Doing what? Doing what? Wasting their lives. It's a wasted generation by imprisoning young people. And the lawyers were angry with me because I was sending young people home. But if I ever get back into office, I'll do it all again. Young people should be in school, not in jail.
I agree with you 100%. Young people should be in school, in sport, at work, but not in prison. And when I was growing up, the first thing you're threatened with in the village or at school, that if you misbehave, and I've heard that many times, so much so that I was tempted to find out what boys' school was all about. You hear that they're going to send you to boys' school, or they're going to send the girls off to girls' schools. And I'm so glad that when you were president that you eliminated all of that. And instead of punishing those young people, you prepared them for a better and a brighter future. Preparing young people is better than imprisoning young people. And I'm so happy because I've heard some sad stories of boys' schools and girls' school out there. And when they came out from there, you think that they were prepared. Their minds were prepared for a bright future. It didn't do that to many of them. It just didn't at all. So I'm glad that under your presidency, you did just that. If ever, you never know, you're back in there again. Hold you to your promise that you're going to continue doing just that and even more. But that's not what we're here to discuss. Let's go to the third question. Why have so many young people been in prison? And I ask this question as I wait your response, because I've witnessed firsthand so many young people in and out of the prison system. No training, no nothing. And some of them for very, very minor crimes that they should not have been in prison. They should have been given a second chance, maybe some sort of community service, maybe some sort of probation, whatever it is. But for 20 plus years prior to 2015, young people were never given that chance. So the question, why have so many young people been in prison, sir?
We inherited a Victorian system, punitive. I mean, our schools, we recall that many people were whipped in the schools. Even in the prisons, I think if you read the papers of the 1950s and earlier, you'd see people being beaten with the cat o' nine tails. Whipping, even in the prisons, was, punishment was more important than correction or reform. Why have so many young people been in prison? Because many of them were never fully educated. And if they dropped out of school or if they got involved in what may be regarded nowadays as antisocial behavior, these are not crimes. Stealing mangoes in the background is not a crime. Or maybe taking a puff of ganja is not a crime. And I don't think people should be in prison. But unfortunately, it can become chronic. Unemployment could lead to a lot of antisocial behavior, people liming on the streets and you know, sometimes maybe getting involved in use of drugs and narcotics, or maybe getting drunk. But in very many instances, these are problems that could be corrected at the neighborhood level or in the regional level, and you don't need to put people in prison. And I think that the laws have to be reformed so that persons don't be wouldn't be sent into to prison. The girls wouldn't be sent to the New Opportunity Corps for wandering, because in my experience, even at the New Opportunity Corps, many of the, in fact, it was really a very strong experience. I stood there at the New Opportunity Corps. I asked the staff to leave. I wanted to speak to the students. You see, as you can see from the hairstyles, many of them are girls, and some of them were there for wandering. No, girls don't decide to go on the street at midnight and 2 o'clock in the morning. It means that there's a problem with the adults, and we need to look at and solve the problems rather than imprison them, because they get a lot of bad habits, a lot of bad things happen in those institutions. So we need to look at the whole criminal justice system to protect young people from being confined to forms of detention, and look for giving them the type of training. And that is why we set up the Guyana Youth Corps, so that you can get involved in education, get involved in skills training, get involved in freedom, in sport, rather than going to New Opportunity Corps. So that is my answer to your question. They don't need to be imprisoned, and we need to look at the types of offenses for which they were put in the detention centers at New Opportunity Corps or in Sophia, on the naming of Sophia, and just decriminalize that form of conduct. Wandering should never be something that is a young girl. Can you imagine a young mother? Maybe she got pregnant at the age of 14 or 15, but you could send her away from her child. It's incredible. I mean, that we should treat young people that way. And I think we need to take a careful look, and we need to sit down with the young people to find out why they behaved the way they did, and correct the conditions and the circumstances under which they live, instead of sending them to a prison. Maybe, in the Victorian way of thinking, just get them out of the way, get them out of the way. You might have read of some stories when there's a state visit, and there are a lot of beggars and poor people. They build a fence and just get the vagrants and the beggars out of the way. And I think sometimes young people are treated like that. Just get them out of the way so they're no longer a problem. Well, that's not a way to develop a country. These young people are the future. And if you confine them to naming and Sophia, well, then Guyana has no credible future. It will just divide Guyana into different strata, different. I don't want to use the word apartheid, but prisons are a form of apartheid.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that response. As we move to our fourth question, and it's all about young people tonight, the future of our young people. They must be taken care of. They cannot be punished in a way that you just dump them in prisons. They need to be prepared for a better, a brighter future. And we're not seeing that today, unfortunately. The cash grants can't save them. What they need, proper training, all manner of things. They need to be taken care of, our young people. That's why it takes a village. Because if one child goes astray in a village, then all in that village should be held responsible. It takes a village. And it reminds me of even when I was growing up, every older folk in that village. And for me, as a little boy, when I was 10 or even 7 or 8, anybody above the age of 20 was old people for us. Big people, those big boys, yell at you. You got to run back into your yards. That's why it takes a village. And let's go to the fourth question for tonight. When is the best time President Granger, when is the best time to address the crisis facing young people?
Well, I'm obliged to refer to the advice of an Anglican cleric who, in answer to that question, said the best time is 100 years ago. It sounds like a very odd answer, but it really is a truism, because it points to the fact that that child's behavior was conditioned by her mother and grandmother. um, that child cannot be held completely responsible for her own conduct, because she learned lessons from her grandmother and her mother. So unless you train people now, you're going to create a cycle of hereditary poverty and perhaps even criminality. And unfortunately, people have experiences. Sometimes an underage girl is found in a mining camp, a girl who'd been trafficked. And sometimes, not frequently, but sometimes, that girl has been sent there by her mother or by a relative. She didn't go there by choice. She probably was sent there because she dropped out of school, and her mother wants to earn money from whatever she is going to end up doing in the hinterland. So when I say the answer to the question is 100 years ago, it means that persons who are now becoming mothers will have an influence on their children and grandchildren. That is why we need to take a whole of society approach. Don't just blame the children. Go and talk to the mothers and the fathers, and you'll find out where the problems originate. So we're already late, but we can correct the problems facing young people by looking at what their parents need and what their communities need. If we do not solve the problems of the parents, the grandmothers and grandmothers, we will not solve the problems of the children. Another anecdote, I'm very reluctant to call names and places, names of persons and places on this program. But there is an article stating that in one particular community in the hinterland, the average age of the grandmother is 32 years. The average age of a grandmother is 32. And sometimes, you go to a drinking spot, and both the mother and daughter are the drinking spot. The mother is in her 30s, and the child is in her teenage years, and they're all drinking together. So there's a knock-on effect. And unless you deal with motherhood, and we've dealt with that topic on Anansi before, we deal with the fathers on some occasion, but you need to deal with the circumstances and conditions under which the girls are brought up. Make sure they go to school, make sure they're properly employed. And I think we go a far way in solving these problems. But it's no point sending the victims, the girls are the victims, no point sending them to New Opportunity Corps and sending them into prison. We need to look at the causes of antisocial behavior, the causes of delinquency, to address the crisis facing young people. And the time is now, and it's already too late. It's already too late. But the least we could do is start to turn the tide on antisocial behavior, which is affecting young people and causing them to be imprisoned. But we need to deal with motherhood. We need to treat our mothers in a much more respectful manner. And we need to ensure that all of them are educated and they're aware of the consequences on the future of this country.
Well said. Thank you so much for responding to that question, as it has to do with the best time. The best time 100 years ago, 200 years ago, the best time. You got to do it now. You can't wait until next week or tomorrow. The best time is now, right now, right now. Work on that, parents.
I tell you, Mark, if you ever come across a girl who is in trouble or difficulties, before you take any action, talk to her mother. And I think you will learn a lot. You'll learn a lot about that child when you talk to her mother.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And to all parents out there, the best time is now. And to all you mothers out there who are struggling, single moms, uh, I can just imagine your pain. And this leads us now to the next question. Who suffers firsthand and most from the failure of a youth strategy? We're seeing it. It's rampant throughout the country. Failed strategies, failed political strategies. It's like no one cares about these young people other than hop in occasionally with a little cash grants, pretending that you care about them just for the photo ops. But deep down inside, there's no proper policies, there's no proper strategy that's in place to pay careful attention to our young people or even single mothers. It's a shame what is happening right now. And so the second to last question, President Granger, is who suffers firsthand and most from the failure of a youth strategy?
I don't know if the strategy has failed. There's just no strategy. I think it is quite clear that the Ministry of Youth, Culture and Sport is more concerned with entertainment and sport, but they do not speak much about youth. And they don't speak about youth because there's no strategy. That is why in 2000, the PPP could simply destroy the National Service because they don't understand what National Service was doing for young people. And they just felt it was something that the PNC invented and they just destroyed it. So when the Guyana Youth Corps was reestablished by my administration in 2018, they destroyed it again as soon as they got into office in 2020 because they don't have a policy. Their policy is to simply go around the country with cash grants and black plastic bags and so on and put people in red polo shirts. But that is not education, that is not development. So I wouldn't even say there's a failure of a strategy, there's an absence of a strategy. And the big problem is that the so-called Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport has little time or spends little time on dealing with youth. They're concerned with bringing artists from overseas and moderation and entertainment. But if we had a dedicated ministry looking after youth, I think we'll see a change. Now the approach is that right down to neighborhood level, right down in regional level, we must have some engagement between young people and adults. It is not a question of government having a policy and imposing it on young people. It's a question of sitting down with young people and finding out what they want, what they need, and ensuring that once a program is developed, they embrace that program because this is what they want. This is what they participated in deciding. But if you lock them out of decision making, this is the problem. This is the problem we face now. When I went to President's College on a visit when I was in office, I would always sit down with students to lunch. I would actually sit down at lunch with students and ask them what they thought, what they wanted. And that is why, even although we'd introduced the PETS, the Public Education Transport Service, one girl actually told me that she lives at Helena Mahaika, and every month her mother has to find over $40,000 to bring it to President's College. And we didn't have money. As I said, our administration only lasted for 3 years, and we didn't have the sort of $1 trillion budget now. But children at that school were given a school bus, so they didn't have to pay anything. All they had to do is turn up in school uniform and get on a bus. No vulgarity, no harassment. They went to this bus and we were able to take. Unfortunately, the program was halted. We left office, and as you know, on that awful 6th of March. People were stoning PPP. Mobsters were stoning the school buses. But that was a salvation to many poor families, that they were able to send their children safely into schools. And this is what came out of discussion with the children themselves. What do you need most? We need to be able to, in our village, get on a bus and come to school, and in the afternoon, get back home. And this is how you get public policy, praxis, not by simply, sitting down in an office and saying, oh, give these people, we care, we cash brand. What the children need is bicycles, what they need is buses to go to school, what they need is boats to go to school. And I'm telling you from personal experience, in the Pomeroon, this is something that a child told my wife. She can't get to school because she can't afford it. This is what a child told me at lunch at President's College, the cost of getting to school. That is where the public education transport service came from. All the buses, boats, and bicycles. It wasn't guesswork. It wasn't sloganeering. And I think the PPP is doing a lot of damage by just to the young people in this country by just throwing these policies out of the window, simply because they were implemented or introduced by some other administration. They want to claim ownership for everything. They're running for a big campaign for elections next year, 2025. So they want to own everything. And they own everything by just removing anything else that the previous administration did. We need a youth corps again. We don't need a new opportunity corps. We need a youth corps back in Korokoro. We need young people coming from all regions, young people of all ethnic groups, of all religions, learning trades to get back into work. Nowadays, work, and everybody's talking about bringing people from Bangladesh, bringing people from Cuba, bringing people from all about the country. And it's not working. We will become strangers in our own country if we do not pay attention to youth education, youth employment, and youth empowerment. We will become strangers in our own country if we do not pay attention to youth education, youth employment, and youth empowerment. So we are suffering, or young people are suffering, because of the absence, not failure. Please correct your question, the absence of a youth strategy on the part of the PPP civic administration.
The absence, indeed, of that. There's nothing, absolutely nothing. They feel 20,000, 15,000 cash grants is that's sufficient. It cannot repair the damage done to our young people for 20-something years prior to 2015. The final question tonight is, Mr. Granger, how can a happy future and a good life for young people be assured? Under your administration, we heard about the good life. Some who are in office now mocking that, something they never offered for 20 plus years. They never offered young people or citizens the good life. Your administration did. I just thought I'd plug that in again. As we close off tonight's program, how can a happy future and a good life for young people be assured?
I would answer the question by saying we need to revisit some of the issues we raised earlier in this program. It starts with education. And my motto was every child in school. And it means that if that child has to be given transportation by a boat, by a bus, by a bicycle, we must do that. Everything must be made possible to get that child in school. We want to see 15,000 children writing National Grade 6 every year, and at least 14 or 15,000 doing well. We don't want to see results with 40%, 50% children failing mathematics, failing English. This is an English-speaking nation. So all of these things come back to education. If we are to make sure those children are properly educated, more has to be done, not slogans. Right now, at the beginning of the new school year, some schools cannot be open. It's like not knowing when Christmas will fall. And every year, this government, this PPP administration is surprised that schools which were closed in June or July still have not been repaired to prepare for the new school year. So it shows that not enough attention is being paid to education. And we need to reintroduce a full, not partial, full public education transport service. No cash grants, just get the children to school. Let us assure our mothers that their daughters will simply go into a bus in their neighborhoods, go to school, and be brought back home safely. We need to ensure that there is a proper nutrition service, what they call the PENS, the Public Education Nutrition Service, that children will get a proper breakfast when they go to school. Hungry children cannot learn. And we need to pay attention to that and that fact. And we need to make sure that our teachers are treated properly so that the teachers are proud of ensuring that they're, look, when I was in primary school, the schools were known by the names of the headmasters because those headmasters wanted to be known as high performers. And we must make sure that we go back to the days in which our teachers are treated with respect. So the teachers are proud. They're properly paid. They're properly dealt with by the ministry. No tricks. Just give the teachers what they need. And if you go around the schools, the primary schools of this country, down in the South Savannahs, at Warrior now, down in the hinterland areas, you'll see the conditions on which teachers live. And most of our teachers, probably well over 80%, are women. And most of the women are mothers. And we need to pay attention to the teaching problem if we're going to solve the education problem. So when we're talking about happiness, when we're talking about the conditions under which children live, if they're looking for a happy future, you have to deal with the education problem. Once we deal with that, we have to deal with the employment problem. Children will drop out of school for different reasons: poverty at home, turmoil in the household, and some of them will slip. But we must provide a safety net. And that safety net is not the New Opportunity Corps, it's the Guyana Youth Corps. And children, young girls, young men going into the Youth Corps could learn skills in any area. And, there's one very prominent public official, I don't want to name names, he's always proud of his national service. He will never deny, although he's not a supporter of AP and URPNC, he never denies that national service made him into what he is now. And it is a shame that this PPP administration, as soon as they get into office, will try to erase everything that the previous administration did, whether it's good or bad. They shut down, can you imagine, in this day and age, an administration will shut down the only public service training college that the country has ever had, the Bertram Collins College? What is going on in their heads that you can actually shut down the Bertram Collins College of the Public Service? It shows that they don't care, and they don't care for good life for young people. So if we want a happy future for the young people, if you want a good life, we need to change many of the policies of this present administration, especially in regard to education of young people, with regard to employment of young people. Let us get out of this idea that you can simply throw a lot of brooms and buckets at young people and then claim that you have 60,000 employed. 60,000 employed doing what? Cleaning up the medians and highways? And we need to ensure that there is some greater level of empowerment, not lip service them, but actually sitting down in the neighborhoods and in the communities with young people. We need a Department of Youth Affairs, not a Ministry of Sports, not a Ministry of Entertainment. We need a department which looks after young people and is prepared to sit down with young people in every single community, all 155,000 young people. What do you need to succeed? What do you need for a happy future? What do you need for a good life? Let us listen to the young people. And they will share, once we agree on the outcome, they will share their views and they will share the policies that come out of this dialogue. But But if you treat the young people as some group of aliens who must simply be seen and not heard, well, then we're on the road to perdition. Right now, the policies being pursued by the PPP are destructive of the good life and destructive of the objective of a happy future for young people in this country. They're giving no assurance that the bulk of young people who constitute two-thirds of our population could actually look forward to a good life. Maybe a few in the elite, maybe a few privileged people could get by, but the bulk of people will not, the way the PPP administration is going at present.
Thank you so much, dear President Granger, and to all of our listeners as well, wherever you are. As you know, those of you who were listening to us from the beginning and those who joined in the middle, maybe those who join now, discussing the future, young people and where it belongs. They are educated, employed, and empowered to make the most prudent decisions in their lives. Young people of every race, region, and religion, however, often face challenges in their lives and well-being. Again, as we leave this evening, and as we prepare to go do whatever else we have to do for the remainder of the night, remember this: young people should be in school, in sport, or at work, not in prison. Not in prison. Unfortunately, this current government doesn't have a plan for young people. It is evident. Cash grants of a little 10,000, 1,500, or 15,000 wouldn't do the trick. It cannot. Nothing close to repairing the damages done to our young people. The coalition government did start the repairing and preparing our young people for a brighter future. Hopefully, soon we'll get a continuation of that. President Granger, thank you so much for your time, as always. Appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to be here with us on Anansi Web Education. Please give our regards to the former First Lady who cared about people and was very focused on issues pertaining to citizens of the country, whether it's women, whether it's young people. There was absolutely no distractions there at all from our former First Lady. Thank you so much for the transportation that you offered young people to go to school. Thank you so much for removing young people out of as what we know as boys' schools and girls' schools, and preparing them for a bright future ahead, and respecting them regardless of what. Thank you so much for your administration. And again, your alma mater, those who might be watching from it tonight, good night to all of those folks in Bartica as well. Thank you so much, President Granger. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mark, and good night to you and your viewers at home here in Guyana and in the diaspora. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you so much. God bless you too, and all of our listeners. God bless you.
All day I back down, me now I come home. Inaga, jackass yard for fetchy load. Cockle shy hand, bag over shoulder, running by his side. A Rexy and Rover, from the farm, them a come. Sun a go down, but up the river. Some washing clothes, some folks are bathing at the water. Fisherman, they catch them a bring. From a canoe boat, man, them start offloading. Aymara, Kwakwari, Yale Baka Kuma Kuma, even Lokonani. Aymara, Kwakwari, Yale Baka Kuma Kuma, even Banga Mary. Listen to this sweet story that tell the people about life in the country. Them children glad when the weekend come.